Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to cover props. What are props? Props is how data is passed through from one component to a different component in React. Essentially, when we have a hierarchy of components, like this masterpiece I drew here, we have the parent component, component 0, will be passing down data through the props to component 1, and it can also do that to component 2, and it can also do that to component 3. Now after that, component 3 will have to decide whether or not some of its props need to be shared with component 4, and if that's the case, it can figure out a way how to do that. And you're probably already wondering, what if I want component 3 to communicate with component 2, or component 4 with component 1, or component 4 with component 0? There are many ways to solve all of these problems, but we're going to start simple. We're going to start with the initial communication of component 0 to component 1. Component 1 is going to be basically our little header, and all that we're going to do is add the ability for this component to be highly reusable, in that it'll take the header text, so you can customize it wherever you use this component. A prop is essentially a JavaScript variable. You can put anything that you want inside that variable. That includes functions, primitives, reference types, even other JSX components as well. Again, we're going to start simple, so let's go ahead and create a prop for this header component right here, and then display the value of it. Let's run this application. See what it looks like right now. And I'm gonna add a placeholder. Never mind, there was already one collapsed in there. We've got the timer placeholder. That should be good enough for us. Let's just take a look. Wow, this is a beautiful app. Okay. I only need one window, so I'm going to go ahead and right click and close all the other tabs. And timer. This will be the prop variable. The props object itself is sort of an any type of object, but it does have a type, and you should use it. However, there are 3 ways sort of to do this. I will go in depth in a specific video about this, but for now, let's just go ahead and create our interface for our props. We'll call this header props. It is a common convention to call the props that belong to a component by basically the name of the component. And in this case, we just have the title, which is going to be a string. And then this guy is going to be used here. We're gonna give a type to this component. It's going to be a React functional component. So you do FC, and then you give it the header props. So now when you come in here, it should give you all the IntelliSense help that you need to figure out what prop you're working with. So let's go ahead and use this. Instead of timer, I'm gonna pass it in. And the way we can interpolate our variable is by putting it in these brackets. And remember, interpolation is the process of getting a variable's value to display or to be used somehow. That's the short version of that. So that's what we want to do here. And so now you see our app is already read, because since we have declared that this is a functional component that takes in these props, it's going to require them, because that's what we have set here in TypeScript. This is the required prop and it should be a string. So let's go ahead and do it wrong multiple ways. Obviously we can just leave it empty and it'll say, hey, property title is missing. Okay, let's go ahead and add it. How do we add it? Good question. We add it by using a HTML-like attribute syntax, but again, we are writing JSX. This is not HTML, so don't be thrown off by that. So let's go ahead and add the title as if it was an attribute, and I'm gonna make it a number, and it should be unhappy, but not by that reason. Okay, there was too many. So now, too many brackets. So now the warning is that the number cannot be assigned to a string. And this is exactly why we choose TypeScript, because in JavaScript, things like this are commonly tolerated, but they can be a huge problem, especially when you're doing math or some sort of string interpolation, and you expected the addition of two numbers to add to a third number instead of the addition of a number and a string to add up to a third string. So let's go ahead and fix it by giving it the new timer title. I'm going to save here, and I'm going to save over here as well. And if I go back to my app, this should display the new timer. Perfect. Now, there is a couple of additional features for props that I want to show you. For example, if we didn't want to make this mandatory and we wanted to let the application figure out its title when we don't pass one in, and we wanted to assign a default value for this component, we could first remove the value here. It should complain because right now it is required. And then we can come over here to the props and we can assign a default value directly to the default props property, and here the title is going to be timer 2. So now why is it not happy? Okay, this is because we did not mark this as nullable. So even though we are setting a default prop value for this, we're not telling TypeScript that this is not mandatory. So we do that by using the nullable operator. So now my application is happy. And if we go to the browser, we should be able to see timer 2. The other way we can do this is, instead of setting the default props, we can just destructure our props here and then set the default value to timer 2. Let's make it timer 3. But now, since we destructured the props into their fields, we just want to access the field directly. So this should be pulling up as timer 3, and there we go. If you're not familiar with destructuring and you want me to make a video about it, give me a comment down below. I'll make a video talking specifically about how destructuring works, how you can use it with objects and arrays, and how it's going to make your programming much efficient because you're typing less. basically, and it's also more expressive, so mini wins. Now that we've got this basic implementation working, I want to tell you a few details about props that you should know about. One of them being is that they are read-only. And the reason why they are read-only is because if a prop was trickled down all the way to C4 and then C4 changed it, all of these components would have to re-render. And that's not very efficient. In fact, there's a lot of ways specifically designed in React so that you prevent redrawing things that have not changed. That's where the meat of the performance boost lives for React. So keep that in mind, and let's go ahead and use this in a more legitimate way for our application. And if you want me to make another video with more information about props, for example, passing JSX components themselves as props, give me a comment. If not, we're going to continue with our timer. And what we will need to do next is use props to set the title of our page, because what we want is for our timer to decrease and for the title to be updated by that change. I'll see you next time.